On August 30th of 2023, a 12-year-old boy would escape from a window of a home in Ivins, Utah, and run to a neighbor's home asking for food and water. The neighbor would end up noticing duct tape around the child's ankles and wrists and would immediately call 911. And when the authorities would arrive, they'd notice that the child looked malnourished, and he also had deep lacerations from what looked like rope being tied around him. The child would then lead the officers back to the home that he escaped from, and inside they would also find a 10-year-old girl, which was the boy's sister. She was also in a similar condition, and the two children would be taken to the hospital for malnourishment. Two other siblings would also be taken into custody. And what a shock it would be to find out that the mother of these children was actually a popular YouTuber who had been filming her children and her family for years and had been documenting the abuse along the way. Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a popular YouTube mom who was arrested recently for child abuse after one of her children would escape a home that they were at and 911 would be called. And her name is Franke.
After doing a little digging, it looks like that 27 I sent you for Franke is going to be the one that is associated with the Jody Hildebrand. They're both showing as therapists from Salt Lake and associated through social media as well.
Now I've been seeing YouTube videos and TikToks about this woman and her extreme forms of parenting for a long time now, and people have been talking about the situation for years at this point. But I never thought it would actually go to this extreme, and at this point, it is a sigh of relief that authorities finally got involved. Giving very much, in my opinion, Lori Vallow vibes with the level of delusion here. And I can't even begin to imagine what these children went through behind closed doors that wasn't filmed. Considering when we talk about the stuff that was filmed, it's very concerning. So in 2015, 33-year-old Ruby and her 36-year-old husband Kevin would launch their YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. Her main focus was vlogging everyday life and sharing her advice and the way she liked to parent her 6 children. There was Sherry, who was around 12 years old at the time, 11-year-old Chad, 8-year-old Abby, 7-year-old Julie, 4-year-old Russell, and 2-year-old Eve. And their channel would blow up, gaining up to 2.2 million subscribers. The family was also very open about their religious views. They lived in Utah, they were part of the LDS church, and they were definitely on the more old-fashioned, strict, rigid stance of punishment and discipline for sure. However, the more content Ruby would put out, the more concerned the public would begin to grow. Because her parenting techniques were, well, they were questionable and they were too harsh in the eyes of many. And we're going to be talking about some of these strange forms of discipline that both Ruby and Kevin would enforce on their 6 children that they filmed and posted for the world to watch. And this video definitely didn't age well.
I give up! I give up! I give up! My hands are down. You got me. Arrest me! Get off! Take me!
But in all seriousness, Ruby would constantly use the camera and use the vlogs to essentially trap her children into having conversations with her that most people wouldn't want to have on camera. They'd ask her to stop filming, they'd look uncomfortable, and Ruby didn't care. She'd make them talk about everything from pimples to puberty to bra shopping to things that they've done wrong.
Julie has been asking all summer if she can shave her legs and armpits, and
I never said that. I
don't want You don't?
No. Julie, you should shave your armpits.
I think your armpits need to be shaved more than your legs do.
When you start speaking, when you start getting BO,
we won't show it on camera.
when you get BO, I think that's when you need to start shaving it.
Ruby would turn some of the most minor things that a child could do, such as playing on an iPad when they're not supposed to, into a big moment and make it into a huge punishment. Calling little Russell to his face both mischievous and manipulative. A child, keep that in mind, over playing on an iPad when he wasn't supposed to.
Okay, you guys, I need to go have a talk with Russell. The fact that he's not willing to sit with me and be humble and talk is a big demonstration to me that he has some distorted views and that he is in a lot of shame. Oh, there you are. I was just talking about you. Do you want to come sit with me and talk? I'm gonna get down on your level. I've noticed that you've been hiding from me and you are feeling a lot of embarrassment and shame. I don't know. You tell me what you're feeling. Mad?
Because I really won't get anything this summer. I won't be able to go anywhere. No, I don't have any friends. No iPads, no TV, nothing.
Okay, so I hear you. That sounds like a lot to be taken away. That sounds like it's going to be a miserable summer. Can I tell you what I see? Would you be open to hearing what I have to say? I see that yes, the iPads will be taken because you weren't responsible. You were lying and being manipulative with them.
Yeah, but you did start it.
And Eve may have started it. That's very possible. And who's responsible for you being disobedient around the iPads?
Me.
You. Yeah. So it's up to you. If you want to be miserable because you don't get TV or iPad, that is totally up to you. You get to choose boredom and you get to choose to be miserable. What I am seeing though is that you're upset with the outcome for being mischievous. And instead of being humble and accepting that there is an outcome for you behaving like that with the iPads, instead you're being selfish. And what I would like to see is that you be humble and say, yeah, you know, I own it. I was mischievous with the iPads. I was sneaking them. I can see where I've broken trust.
In another video, she was so mad about Russell leaving his socks outside that she made him do push-ups as a punishment.
You are not going anywhere unless you pick up your junk. You've got crap strewn all around. Now, so you see, now I'm using bad language. That's how bad of a mood I'm in. You get your socks picked up and don't you leave your stuff out anymore.
Where?
Right over there. Run and go pick them up. And then give me 10 push-ups. Put them in your pocket so you can take them down to the hamper and drop and give me 10.
1.
Put your hands straight out. They're in. They're not supposed to be out. Shape your hands forward. There you go. 1, 2, down further. Bring your butt down.
The children weren't even allowed to call their own bedrooms their bedrooms because they were actually, in her mind, Ruby's rooms that she was allowing her children to use, which is just, where is the sense of home? Where is the sense of safety?
My kids are not welcome to come live with me after they're 18. I am very straightforward about that.
She had so many negative comments about that fact that she decided to try and defend herself.
One comment once explaining how I expect our children to live out on their own outside of the house after they're 18 and after they've graduated from high school. I was accused of abuse. It's like, it's abuse to expect your children to be responsible.
To grow up and be productive adults.
You guys, it's crazy, ridiculous how people are so scared of responsibility. Here's the deal. Everything that comes into this house belongs to who? Belongs to me. Everything. So you don't have a cell phone, you have access to a phone. Chad does not have a cell phone I took from him. He has access, which benefits were withdrawn. About a year ago, maybe over a year ago, all the kids lost their phone privileges.
But that's honestly the most mild things that Ruby would do. And I know everyone's parenting techniques are different. There's tons of people who want their children to, you know, move out of the house when they turn 18 or go to college and grow up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching your children discipline, teaching them responsibilities. But in my opinion, Ruby and her husband were doing this to an extreme. And a big thing that Ruby would like to do was withhold food from her children as a punishment. One that really shocked me was back in 2019 when Eve was only in kindergarten. She expected her to make her own lunch, take it to school. And of course, when this kindergarten age child failed to do that and Ruby didn't follow up to make sure she did or help her with it or make her lunch for her. And when the school called and told Ruby that Eve didn't have any food, Ruby said she wasn't going to eat that day then. She was going to be hungry and learn a lesson from it.
Got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry, and hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
A literal kindergarten age child. Hell, I would be surprised if my husband got up early enough in the morning to make himself lunch for work. let alone a kindergarten student. But unfortunately, that's not it. The kids' food privileges were constantly being threatened over minor things.
Torturing him, stop it. I know you're not, but it looks like you are. Okay, Russell. I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
Can you give me some breakfast?
You don't need food. My kids are literally starving. I hesitate to say this because it's gonna sound like I'm like a mean barbarian, but I told the kids, I said, I'm not even gonna let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done.
In another clip, Eve, who again was in kindergarten at the time, was expected to wake herself up in the morning, get herself ready, and go to preschool, all on her own accord. And when she failed to wake up in the morning on time and get ready and be ready to go to school, it was her fault if she missed it.
2 days ago was preschool. Eve slept in. She's notorious for sleeping in. And she woke up and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to wake her up because every time I wake her up, she gets super grumpy and upset and I have to literally drag her and get her dressed. And she's old enough to do that herself. And she missed preschool. She slept in and she woke up and she's like, I'm ready to go to preschool. I said, you know what? Preschool's over. You slept through it. I'm sorry. And she's like, what? And I said, you need to get up and get ready if you're going to go to preschool because I'm not going to drag you out of bed.
Ruby at one point also threatened to cut the heads off of Eve's dolls.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
And it really does seem like Eve and Russell were really targeted a lot in this. They were the two youngest. At one point, they got Christmas taken away from them because of bad behavior, but all the other kids got Christmas.
Laid it out very clear, and we told them that this year they are not going to be visited by Santa.
It's just like little sinister things that Ruby would do that are just honestly fucked up. But they weren't the only ones that got a lot of it. Their second oldest child, Chad, also got a lot of the brunt of this punishment. In 2019, Chad was actually sent away to wilderness therapy camp for troubled teens, where he had to live off the land for 8 to 10 weeks. And they did this in hopes of improving his behavior around the house and sparking change in him, even though he was just being a regular teenage boy. And if you have followed anything about these wilderness camps and these troubled youth camps, they're not good. They're not good news. There's been so many horror stories to come out of these places where children literally die. It's horrific. And the fact that Chad was sent there, I feel so bad for him. And the reasons that they would punish their children were always so minor. Like literally think back to a couple clips ago about Ruby withholding food. Chad was wrestling with one of his brothers and she was going to take away dinner from them for having fun and playing as kids. Like, what? And of course there's more, because in 2020, Ruby and Kevin were once again under fire after they posted a video where they admitted that Chad's bedroom privileges were taken away for 7 months and he had to sleep on a beanbag on the floor after playing a prank on his little brother. Hear me out. Kids play pranks on each other. We don't even know what this prank was and how bad it was, but again, consider the kids just wrestling and play fighting is going to get their dinner taken away. I can imagine it's probably some minute thing he did to his brother. And he got his bedroom taken away for nearly 3/4 of a year and had to sleep on a beanbag on the floor. I don't even think Chad had a cell phone for most of his teenage years because I think that was taken away as well.
The bedroom was taken away for 7 months and then you give it back like a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October.
But I do think one of my favorite clips of Chad is when he keeps interrupting Ruby when she's trying to vlog, and it's kind of like a little payback. And I am so glad he did that because Ruby deserves so much more. And I hope if she does go to prison, she gets it all.
So hold on, we got to do a little update here for a second. We got
I have therapy and I got kicked out of my school. Woo! Yeah.
Okay.
I have acne still.
Everybody's asking if you still have your phone taken away for the summer.
Yep, I do.
Yes.
Sadly.
And
it's not her fault, it's mine.
When will you learn, Chad?
Actions have consequences.
A lot of you guys say, oh, you shouldn't get mad at them for bad grades. They try their hardest. You on the
I
other
did not
end
try my hardest.
Don't know that he
cheated on a test.
Tried his hardest.
Is that Sister Jensen?
So, no, I want to tell you this. No, listen. I talked to the principal of the school today.
Hey, passengers. Sorry, someone just yelled 8 passengers out the window. Little back.
Okay, are you okay? Listen, I talked to the principal today, and...
Did he accept me back?
No.
Okay, good.
Okay, let me get 5 words in before you start talking and flopping your yap. Okay, listen. I talked to the principal. He wanted me to tell you he loves you, and he was very sad to see that you weren't coming back. The reason you're not going back to that school is because you chose not to.
Yep. I really did not want to go back.
The agreement was you can come back if you're humble and if you really want to be here.
I really did not want to be there.
The honest truth is, he's not humble and he doesn't want to be there. So,
look at that.
If you, listen, oh my gosh, listen. If you change your mind and you realize what you're missing out on and you humble yourself, you are welcome back to the school.
I really don't want to go back to that school.
I know. I'm just letting you know that that is an option.
Because I can be with these dudes.
But I do still expect you to be honest,
responsible, and humble.
We'll work on the humble. You still need to work on being humble.
Because honestly, there are just too many videos that Ruby has posted that make my stomach lurch.
30 minutes away from home, I was not one happy mom. I gave Julie a tongue lashing that will not ever be repeated nor recorded. Just use your imagination. It was bad. You have to throw up twice before I come get you. So if you have a headache at school, if you
5 it's just like a little.
Huh?
Isn't it like 5 if it's just like a little?
If you throw up, you throw up. If you throw up twice, you call me. We're gonna put a pillow and a blanket by the toilet, and you can camp out in the bathroom, okay? Do you want to do that?
Do you want Grandma to sleep on the floor with you?
No.
Okay.
There's so many videos where, in my opinion, the children are crying out for help and they're trying to expose their mother in these video clips, and she's just so delusional that she keeps these clips in because she doesn't think they look bad, which thankfully she did leave all these clips in, and she posted this all on the internet so that people could actually go back and look and reflect. She was documenting the abuse. Like this one where Ruby is trying to pass this trip that she went on with Eve as a happy one, but then Eve is in the background of the video saying that her mom actually yelled at her.
Has been amazingly well behaved for being in town.
But you yelled at me.
Shh. The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret. We don't want our viewers to know. That never happens in my house. I never yell.
Eve, she was 6 years old at the time, and she was saying her prayers, and she said the cutest thing. I thought it was so cute, and I started laughing. She said, "Dear Heavenly Father, please help me to survive."
Be 5 years, 10 years, I might even take it to the grave with me. My dirty little secret.
What are you looking forward to the most in the new house? For sure, my new room. Not my room, Mom's room that she's letting me have or use.
And the way that Ruby's entire demeanor just shifts in that clip, it gives me the creeps. It's kind of terrifying. This woman, there's something mentally wrong with her, in my opinion. And I'm so hoping that there weren't actually people that were watching her videos for parenting advice and took her advice and implemented on their own children. I really hope that they did not, because taking food away from children, taking their bedroom away for 7 months over a prank, it's ridiculous. Making a child do push-ups because he left his socks on the ground outside, in my opinion, those are extreme punishments for what was done. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. And again, I'm not saying don't punish your children, don't teach them responsibility, don't teach them this, don't teach them that, because that's what Ruby would always try to defend herself with. Like, she's trying to teach her children responsibility and to be good people, essentially. And she was doing the opposite, in my opinion. She was making her children terrified of her. She was making these children hate their lives. I don't think they felt safe in that home. I don't think they felt happy in that home. I don't think home was a place where they felt safe, which is the opposite of what a home should be for children. Now, around this time, Ruby would end up meeting a woman named Jody Hildebrandt. And this is where things would take a turn for the worst. Now, I've seen some mixed stories of how they actually met, and people speculate it's because Ruby was trying to find some way to get Chad help, who she thought was, displaying this problematic behavior even though he was just being a teen boy. And it's alleged that Jody was the one that recommended the wilderness therapy camp. And apparently a lot of members of the LDS church went to Jody for help. But let me know if that's correct or not, because I know there are so many people out there who have been following this story and this family and this channel for years since they started. And as always, I'm open to other facts, other information, so let me know down below. But Jody here was actually a counselor that had a company called Connections, where Ruby would end up beginning to work as a mental health coach. Don't know how she ended up getting that role, because her mental health seems a little... The two would end up starting to create videos together, offering a support group to moms, including parenting classes, homeschooling, and more. And this woman, Jody, don't let her smile fool you. In 2012, Jody's license to work as a pornography addiction therapist was actually taken away from her, and she was put on probation for about 18 months. And this is after she shared some of her patients' private medical information with leaders of the Mormon church. Now, I know some people that are Mormon, and I've been following Mormon creators and ex-Mormon creators for years now. That I have. So I've learned a bit about the culture. And in my opinion, it seems like Miss Jody here was using these people coming to her in private for help and using it against them, trying to get them in trouble with the church. Because if you didn't know, watching porn addictions, all that stuff is obviously stuff you're not supposed to do in the Mormon church. They're very modest, they're very PG about stuff, and watching porn and having a porn addiction would be a big slip up if you are a practicing Mormon, especially if you're going to Mormon church all the time, and the leaders found out, you would be in trouble. So it really does seem like Jody was manipulating people and taking advantage of their trust and then going behind their backs and getting them in trouble with their church. That's so fucked up, especially as someone who's supposed to be a therapist. That's someone you're supposed to trust with your deepest, darkest secrets, and she was literally taking advantage of that. However, she was allowed to go back to work after that. She continued practicing, and a lot of people are actually saying that they feel like this is a cult of sorts. And honestly, from the way that Ruby started acting after she met Jody, which was to an even more extreme, she was giving cult eyes to me. Her whole demeanor, giving cult. I even read that Ruby and Jody agreed on video that a parent is not obligated to love, nurture, support, or care for their children, but instead the sole duty of a parent is to teach kids about Jesus Christ and save them from distortion by any means necessary. I also seen another video where Jody and Ruby in one of these Connections videos were talking about how after a woman births a baby and the umbilical cord's cut, that baby has to basically survive on its own and it's not the mother's responsibility. Shocking, just so confused. In another Connections video, Ruby claimed that they pulled their children out of school and gave them no Christmas presents as a punishment for acting selfish. And this whole acting selfish, acting ungrateful thing is something brought up a lot by Ruby. And it really does seem like Ruby thinks that her children are selfish, uncaring brats, even though they're literally not. They're just children, and they clean her whole house for her. They have to make themselves breakfast. They have to get up on their own and take themselves to school, even in kindergarten. They don't get to eat half the time, it seems like. They're made to do push-ups for not picking up socks. How are these children ungrateful? If anything, Ruby is ungrateful for getting blessed with having these children, and she doesn't fucking deserve any of them. In January of 2022, Ruby stopped posting to her YouTube channel altogether, and 8 passengers would eventually be taken down. And according to Ruby, this is because she needed to save her children.
I have been full-time. You wonder where I've been on my vlogs? You wonder why I left YouTube? It's to save my kids. No amount of money. And I'm telling you, I was making millions. And I left it because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt. With people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand. And fortunately, I had a chance. I had them in my home long enough to do it, and I'm not going to lose them. They're seeing truth, they're accepting truth, they're loving truth.
Now, sadly, the Franke family's neighbors were not surprised to see a swarm of police outside of their home. One neighbor telling NBC, and I quote, "Everyone is just breathing a collective sigh of relief because we thought that law enforcement were going to come out of that house with a body bag." End quote. Neighbors also said that they called the police on multiple different occasions with concern, but it seems like police did nothing. And Ruby allegedly also was annoying all of her neighbors and was sticking her nose into their business as well, telling the media that Ruby frequently involved herself in their lives, giving one a lecture about having photos of women modeling in shorts hanging inside of their garage. They also said that the parents would regularly disappear for weeks and leave those children at home alone to fend for themselves. In 2022, their oldest daughter, Sherry, was now an adult, and she confirmed via an Instagram post that she was no longer in contact with her parents and condemned the extreme views that they held. She also then went on to talk in a podcast called Into the Light.
And then I noticed, when I would leave my family, I would just feel spiritually drained. I just wouldn't feel great.
Yeah.
I would like overhear conversations and just like find myself internally like, this isn't right, like this isn't okay. And so it got to the point where I was like, I can't keep pretending like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's hard.
And this is also when neighbors would begin to report that things were getting weirder at the Franke household. A neighbor explaining to Rolling Stone, and I quote, "In early 2022, it started getting weirder when Ruby completely stopped her YouTube stuff and it just kind of turned dark. She, Franke, taped up paper all over the windows. She would disappear for weeks at a time, and there's all these little kids just left alone at the house. Eve, her youngest daughter, would allegedly be left alone and wander the neighborhood looking for friends, like a lost child who clearly wasn't enrolled in school, and reportedly knocked on the doors and asked if neighbors' kids could play, and would respond with, 'I'll wait,' after being told they would not be home for 3 or 4 hours," end quote. So basically these children would be left home. Eve would wander the neighborhood, which is extremely dangerous. She could have just been kidnapped. And the neighbors could tell something was wrong because little Eve, even when she was told like the kids aren't home, they're at school, she would just want to like sit on the step and wait for them for 3 or 4 hours to come home because she had nowhere to be. She had nothing to do. It's ridiculous. So it would end up turning out that it was 12-year-old Russell who was the one who ended up escaping from Jody's home on August 30th to get help for him and his siblings. And the fact that Russell and Eve were so malnourished that they needed to be taken to a hospital is just, it's crazy. And this is exactly why Ruby gives me Lori Vallow vibes. If Russell hadn't escaped and police hadn't have taken this seriously, who knows how long these children would have had before this would have been turned into a murder case. That day, both Ruby and Jody would be arrested on 2 counts of aggravated child abuse. Ruby is now currently being charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse, which she can face up to 15 years of prison for and a fine of $10,000. In a statement by the Washington County Attorney, he said, and I quote, "The 2 women are believed to have caused or permitted serious physical injury in 3 ways. 1, a combination of multiple physical injuries or torture. 2, starvation or malnutrition that jeopardizes life. And 3, cause severe emotional harm," end quote. And you may be asking, where is Kevin in all this? Where is the father? And what I was wondering this whole time is why the hell hasn't Kevin been arrested as well? Because he was around during all this time when these punishments were happening too. However, from what I've seen, it seems like Ruby kicked Kevin out of the house about a year ago, and he hasn't been arrested so far. So he has made a statement, however, saying that he's trying to keep these children together following the arrest of their mother and Jody. He's also been seen outside of their home in Springville, Utah, having the 8-passenger sticker removed from his vehicle, talking on the phone, and he kind of seems like he's trying to be the one to get the kids back. And I don't know if Ruby was the ringleader in all of this and Kevin kind of just went along with it, because we do see that happen in cases where, you know, one person goes along with what the other parent's doing. However, I don't think that's an excuse because Kevin's an adult as well and he could have told Ruby no. I definitely think he was complicit in a lot of this as well. But other family members have begun to speak out as well. Sherry, who is now 20 years old, posted on her Instagram with a photo of the police outside the home and wrote, "Finally." She's also said that she's been trying to tell the police and CPS for years. Ruby's sister Ellie, Bonnie, and Julie also released a statement on Instagram saying, and I quote, "For the last 3 years, we have kept quiet on the subject of our sister Ruby Franke for the sake of her children. Behind the public scene, we have done everything we could to try to make sure the kids were safe. Ruby was arrested, which needed to happen. Jody was arrested, which needed to happen. The kids are now safe, which is #1 priority," end quote. Chad is also now an adult and is also estranged from his mother, but at this point I have not seen a statement from him so far. I also seen mentioned somewhere that when Kevin was kicked out, Chad left with him, but again, I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'm sure there's a lot more evidence and video footage that I didn't talk about in this video, but it's kind of endless at this point. So if you just go Google, you'll find endless videos, which is, it's insane and it's sad and it's scary. But if there's anything important you think I didn't talk about, let's have a conversation about it down below. I also seen that Sherry has a Google Doc going around where she wants people to submit evidence that she can send to the police. So if I can find that link, I will also have that down below if anyone wants to contribute. But honestly, what do you all think? In my opinion, again, I think Ruby was escalating and I think there is something seriously mentally wrong with her. And if these children didn't get help for themselves when they did, I think that this would have been a way worse situation than it already was. It's giving cult, it's giving Lori Vallow, it's giving super fucking bad situation. It honestly reminds me a lot of the Turpin family as well. Also, this soft tone of her voice and her methods of raising the children also reminds me a lot of the FLDS teachings, or even like the Duggars, which we know none of that is good news. It reminds me a lot of the beliefs in the Netflix documentary Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, you know, where the women talk on this nice, sweet voice, even though they're malicious. But at the end of the day, I'm really happy that these children are finally getting help, that they're taken out of the situation, and that this woman is behind bars, which as far as I know, she's still behind bars. This is just a really long time coming, I think. And it's just as the neighbor said, it's this collective sigh of relief that something finally has happened here. Because again, I've been seeing this topic of conversation up for years on the internet about this family and what was going on here. And there's finally been a resolution, hopefully a permanent one. And hopefully Ruby learns her lesson and she goes to jail. Hopefully the women in prison teach her a lesson on punishment. But that's just my opinion. How do you all feel? Let's chat about this case down below. As always, if there are any other cases you want me to look into or cover, also leave them down below and I'll do my best to look into them. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.